happiest place on earth, so you guys want to have a little fun? Yeah!
If there was one city in the world where you might expect to find happiness, it's Anaheim, California. This is the home of Disneyland, the second most popular amusement park in the world. From Anaheim, Disney has for decades been selling an image of fantasy to millions of visitors every year. But over the summer, anger that had been growing in communities in the shadows of this multi-billion-dollar industry began spiraling out of control. What followed was some of the worst civil unrest this city has ever seen, and a police response that turned parts of Anaheim into what looked like a war zone.
To me, it just looked like our happiest place on earth had just turned into Afghanistan.
They were ready to go to war. They were ready to shoot anybody that got out of line.
Move forward!
The images shocked the country, but left unanswered questions. Why did it happen? And how soon before it happens elsewhere in the United States?
I had a feeling that this kind of thing would occur, and I've been waiting to see where it would spark, and it sparked here.
Hey, he's still alive, man. Call a cop.
The 21st of July, 2012. Manuel Diaz, a 25-year-old Latino man, was shot in the back of the head as he was running from police.
I was in LA when I received a call from my daughter crying, screaming, and when she told me that you need to come, the cop killed Manuel.
Yesenia Rojas' daughter, along with dozens of residents in their community, had not only witnessed the entire scene, they'd also filmed the aftermath on their cell phones.
Everybody was scared. Everyone was asking questions. Faces were looking nervous, and they can't understand exactly what happened and why they did this.
The police say Diaz was reaching for a weapon in his waistband, but no gun or weapon was ever found. Witnesses say the police did little to help Diaz as he lay dying.
My daughters talk about how they treated him, how they got him by the shirt and rolled him over to handcuff him. He's dying with a bullet in his head, and they're still treating him like an animal. And it's just not right what they did to him.
More residents started to gather at the scene, outraged by the police action. The police, now with extra reinforcements, responded to what they say was becoming an unruly crowd.
Everybody started screaming to them the way that they took his life.
Only one local news channel caught this scene on camera. The footage would have a major impact on what would follow.
I started running because I saw when the officer arrived with the dog, everything was really, really fast. My son was on the floor, and the dog was biting my son. I know that they lost control, and I know that they're just pigs. They don't even care about us. They don't even care about the community, especially because we're Mexicans, because we're Latinos.
Yesenia was shot 3 times with beanbag rounds as she ran to help her son. Several other people were also injured, including a teenage boy. The local news footage went viral, a video that would spark national attention and anger at police brutality in Anaheim.
That police officers offered to buy their video from them.
So when people saw the footage of people getting shot at by these indiscriminately, that's when people saw that, there's a problem.
Just 24 hours later, another young Latino man was shot and killed by Anaheim police. It was the 7th police shooting death in Anaheim in less than a year. Almost all of the victims had been Latinos, immediately labeled as gang members by the police.
This has happened for decades. Us being harassed, us being bullied around, us being treated with so much discrimination, and nobody had ever said anything.
The city had reached a boiling point. Crowds of people marched on City Hall demanding justice.
everyone's holding their signs, and people are outraged. And I saw people there that I had never seen before. From there, it just started escalating more and more and more. As each police officer came out, it seemed like people were getting louder, angrier, and then there wasn't even a chance anymore. People weren't chanting, they were just going off.
I did not see anybody start doing anything until they started shooting us. That's when I saw people reacting and throwing rocks at them.
And so the rest of us were watching it from these live streams, and we're just saying, you can't believe this is Anaheim. I cannot believe this is what's happened to our, suburban city, is now it's turned into a war zone.
It's been 3 months since the unrest, and we're being given a tour of Anaheim's toughest neighborhoods.
Slow down though. Yeah, so this whole area right here is area on Olinda. This is one of the hottest areas in this neighborhood right here.
Scandalous and Chuux took part in this summer's demonstrations.
Daily hustle, daily grind on the edge of the map. Land side to be exact, West Coast ready to snap.
They're part of a local rap group whose music is about the deep distrust these communities have of the city's police.
We can't hang around out on the street because of an injunction, just a thing the city puts. A little whole area, like a whole neighborhood.
Even if it's your own house?
Yeah. Even if it's your own
it's outside your house, it's considered their property already. That's what they take it as. If you're outside with more than 3 people and they see that, they consider it gang activity and street terrorism.
Exactly.
Street terrorism is the charge on which Scandalous recently served a 3-month sentence in prison. He and his friends say they're frequently targeted by the police, even if it has little to do with illegal activity.
Exactly. Everything is a violation. Everything you do is a violation.
I've seen police pull up to us already, with their strap right here, already with their strap on there, you know what I mean? Like, we're not even armed, and they're already with their strap, ready to pull it out.
The way we look, just because of the way we look and the way we, they see us dressed and stuff right away, they're thinking like, okay, this guy's up to something, I gotta be ready.
For Scandalous and his friends, while it was the shootings that brought crowds onto the streets this summer, the underlying anger was at a system of policing that they say treats Anaheim's Latino youth as criminals.
And they have a saying, because they talk to like, where are you guys from? We're like, I don't bang, we don't gang bang. They'll label you either way. They're like, no, you're in this area, so you're this and that.
From this.
So they're like, all right, so you walk like a duck, you talk like a duck, you're a duck.
Be a duck.
But they say, I'm not part of the gang. Well, you look at tattoos, you can look at who they associate with, and you can look at who they commit crimes with.
Sergeant Juan Reveles is head of the Anaheim Police Department's gang unit. The city saw an increase in crime last year, crimes the police department mainly attribute to gangs. One of the tools the police use to fight gangs is a controversial legal mechanism called a gang injunction.
An injunction is a civil lawsuit that the district attorney, in collaboration with the Anaheim Police Department, puts together the information and sues the gang.
It's essentially a court order that turns certain areas of the city into zones where police can arrest suspected gang members for things which wouldn't normally be against the law.
People are prohibited from engaging in activities that are pretty routine and mundane and otherwise legal in other jurisdictions, such as standing in public for more than 5 minutes together, wearing certain colors, carrying tools sometimes.
According to Reveles, injunctions are a critical tool to protect residents who can become innocent bystanders in gang violence. But civil rights advocates say this tool grants broad power to police, not only criminalizing basic freedoms, but also allowing additional names to be added without any oversight.
Maybe they're playing basketball or playing soccer in the street, or they go to the food truck together, whatever. The police then goes and gives a notice to those kids that says, we've seen you associating with a known gang member. The notice doesn't require them to do anything or have any legal effect other than to document this gang contact. And then those kids are added into the injunction.
Those names enter a statewide gang database that can be accessed not only by police, but also by the FBI and US immigration authorities. And it's nearly impossible to be taken off the list.
Particularly black youth are targeted disproportionately across the state to be put in this database, followed by Latino youth and then very few white youth.
You're saying that most of the gangs here are Hispanic gangs.
I told you all but one.
All
That's
but
huge.
one. So that must feed into perception that the police only target a certain type of person.
It's that perception. But if I'm looking for gamers, I just told you what the numbers are. What good is it for me to stop this kid, white kid that looks like a skater? Not because of his race, because I know what our gangs are.
So you do work on that basis?
What else do I do?
But that's racial profiling.
If they were Asian that were controlling, guess what I'd be looking in that neighborhood? Asian. That's who is impacting them. If I am trying to ascertain if these kids are being involved in gangs, if they're gang members, what good does it do me to stop and talk to a kid that's in a skateboard that doesn't dress this way?
What they end up doing is they end up sweeping whole chains of neighborhoods, of friends, of family into the label of gang, and then suffering the criminalization, the effects of criminalization for being swept into the gang.
The Anaheim Police Department doesn't allow media to accompany them on patrols around the city's neighborhoods, but we did persuade them to take us on a different kind of ride-along. These officers fly over the city for about 8 hours a day, surveilling neighborhoods and assisting ground units below. From the air, one thing that's immediately clear is that the gang injunctions are being placed on neighborhoods which are close to the resort district.
This neighborhood right here is the Jeffrey Street neighborhood. There's a gang injunction there.
There's a gang injunction over this entire
neighborhood, and then right behind it is Disneyland.
That's right next to Disneyland.
Yeah.
So they also tend to be put in areas that border wealthier white communities, or where property values are kind of fluctuating. But across the board, Black and Latino, lower income neighborhoods.
So you think, you see it being used as a tool to basically clean up neighborhoods?
Exactly.
For the pilots, the main focus is helping to stop gang activity, which they say is highest in the predominantly Latino downtown neighborhoods of the city.
Why do you think that is?
I think immigration is a big part of it. The immigrant population is less likely to engage government if they're afraid. And truthfully, their level of tolerance, I think, is higher for certain, types of disorder or just things that, contribute to gang violence they may be put up with.
They hang in a certain area and claim a certain turf for their gang.
How do you differentiate between those people
and regular young men?
Regular young men who live in those neighborhoods that are under the injunction.
And so in the injunction...
How do you spot the difference?
Well, a lot of times you can't. That becomes the problem, doesn't it, for the police? It also becomes the problem for the community.
It feeds into our most basic fears, right? We're protecting you from the gangs. If we don't do this, these gangs are going to take over your city. They're gonna hurt you.
All right, always stay prepared. Never know when the lyrics will come.
Scandalous and his friends don't deny that gangs exist.
Do you have any other ones on here?
But they say the link between gangs and criminality isn't as simple as it seems.
West District taking lines, really no surprise. They come to bring the minds to all of our lives.
Especially in communities where kids grow up afraid of the police, and where gangs are looked at as a form of protection and acceptance outside of a system that already labels them as criminals.
People don't wake up one day and be like, I want to be a gang member today. I want to, go out and gang bang and this and that.
Yeah, but see, everybody else will call it, being gang. But like, you live right here in this neighborhood. Your stepdad might be involved with them. Your homies are people you grew up with.
That's like your best friend. And in some way or form, you have to learn. You learn that you have to protect yourselves. Whether it be from the cops, whether it be from other neighborhoods or whatever.
So we're not arguing that somehow street violence is good or gangs are good. What we're arguing is that these policies do nothing to actually alleviate this violence. That these policies actually exacerbate street violence by pushing youth further away from opportunities, more into poverty, more into isolation, more into this, this system of constantly being in and out of prison. The gang member, right, has been held up as a specter to be feared, and really anything is justified as long as you say someone is a gang member. It's a way of talking about race without actually talking about race.
In recent years, Anaheim has undergone a transformation. The city and its surrounding county have been known for decades as a predominantly white and conservative enclave in the otherwise liberal and racially diverse state of California.
You know, one of the things that's changing pretty drastically, which is changing a lot of the United States, by the way, not just here, but one of the things that's changing here is that you're having an influx of Latinos coming into this particular area.
Today, over half of Anaheim's population is Latino. Thousands work in the city's resort district, which is the largest and fastest growing private employer in the county. Most jobs available in Anaheim barely pay above California's minimum wage. Yet housing rents in Orange County are some of the highest in the state. Yesenia gets up at 4 a.m. every day to get to work on time after getting her children ready for school. She says life is difficult for working families in this city.
See, we live in a beautiful Anaheim where we have Disney, beautiful world, and we don't even enjoy it. We don't even have time to go over there because just to go in the parking lot, you pay $15 at parking.
So you get this tremendous imbalance of sort of the low-wage jobs that are being created, people that are serving the food and cooking the food and sweeping the streets and tending to the landscape, the tremendous disconnect between the kind of jobs that are being created and the kind of housing that is available.
The other side of that coin is the affluent suburb of Anaheim Hills. High above the rest of the city, this neighborhood is home to many of Anaheim's political and economic power brokers. More than 70% of the residents here are white.
We can actually see the flatlands stretching out in the distance down below, and up here in Anaheim Hills it really does feel like a different world. The houses have swimming pools and manicured gardens. Some of them are worth millions of dollars, and some say also the residents here, although they account for only a fraction of the city's population, have a disproportionate influence over the way this city runs.
On a per capita basis, Anaheim Hills has more of those resources than any other neighborhood in the city, really.
The people who have to answer to this, the Anaheim City Council. 4 out of 5 of those members live in Anaheim Hills, and while they run a majority Latino city, none of them are Latino.
There's 350,000 people in Anaheim, and they require services, and that's what my job is as mayor, to make sure that we're addressing the needs of 350,000 people.
And do you think that's happening right now?
I think it's happening. I think can we do a better job? I think we always can, and that's what we're searching to do.
In Anaheim, you have a vast disparity between the haves and the have-nots, and the Latino community, which is disproportionately poor in comparison to the rest of Anaheim, has had a lack of a voice in the way their city government runs, in the way their city is run.
So what you're probably seeing here is a certain power dynamic that's developing where people that have controlled the city and controlled the area for a long time, with a new population coming in and asking for representation, and you see tensions developing.
Those tensions are further complicated by a tourist industry that sees massive subsidies and tax breaks from the city council, while working-class neighborhoods continue to feel ignored.
I really want someone that is really going to represent our communities, not a corporation. I think in the last years we have enough. We already have enough, and they got to understand that this is the communities that they've been suffering and they need help.
Our job as the city is, essentially public safety and civic upkeep, and we're stretched. As you know, all cities in California are very stretched these days. So
but you have a multi-million-dollar resort industry here that other cities don't have, and that's a lot of revenue that's generated.
There's a lot of revenue, and but we still have these problems.
In fact, the Anaheim Resort District is valued at around $5 billion, a precious stream of money that relies on keeping any sign of gangs or angry street protests out of sight.
It's a place where image really matters to the economic powers of the city. And so there is a real effort to make sure that things look nice.
That emphasis on maintaining image is what some say influenced what happened next.
The difference here is that the stakes and the amount of money and capital accumulation that's occurring here is a little more intense, which means that the ability for people to get very wealthy off of that is really high, and this is something people protect very dearly.
When a few hundred demonstrators attempted to march through the city to Disneyland several days after the earlier protests, they were met with an entirely different police response.
And we started moving and walking to protest. That's when you saw SUVs, guys hanging outside of the SUVs with, you know, assault rifles over their shoulders.
When I first saw them drive up, my heart skipped a beat.
By getting into military fatigues, having SUVs running and police on horseback, it creates this escalated militaristic feel.
What can you do when you have pretty much a military against you? No one is armed. No one was armed. Well, we weren't armed. We didn't have any weapons.
The highly militarized nature of the response shocked everyone in Anaheim.
It looked like your officers were prepared for some kind of urban warfare.
That was entirely inappropriate. That was when I saw the newspaper the next day and opened it up and saw a picture of a armored vehicle traveling down Anna Drive with SWAT people hanging on the outside with fully automatic weapons. I mean, I was shocked as well, and I was not happy.
So you didn't know about it?
No, I didn't know about it.
Where did the order come from?
It came from a lieutenant in that group, and I held the lieutenant accountable.
Whether it was deliberate or not deliberate, I think the message was, it couldn't have been more clear. And the message was, if you continue this, we will treat you like we're in the middle of a war.
You know, nobody's gonna be so willing to go up and speak up. When you do, you got the military on you. You know, when you do, you got freaking pigs and horses coming at you. You know, treating you like you're way less than them, and they can do as they please, because it's not your city, it's their city.
I'm not naive. I know that we have a problem with trust. I know that I have to make changes in this organization in order to regain that trust.
If the city did intend to send a message that day, it was heard. The protests stopped, but the anger continues.
Why aren't these murderers behind bars? Why is it okay for them to be free?
In the last 8 years, Anaheim has had at least 40 police shootings. In each case, every officer involved has been cleared of any wrongdoing. At the city council meeting, the mothers of this summer's police shooting victims have come to remind people of the continuing sense of injustice in their communities.
So what do these young men feel? They feel defeated and hopeless. So they might as well join a gang because no one else is going to help them. We do not want our youth killing each other, and we do not want our youth being targets for the police department.
On the surface, the pace of the city is back to normal. Tourists are flocking in, and business is booming.
That's how we know. And you got a lot more to say too sometimes.
But underneath, the city remains deeply divided. A divide that many here fear could explode in anger once again.
If we continue to go in the path that we are going in, where it means that certain populations are still going to be ignored, that the wealth is not going to be shared, distributed, or redistributed in any meaningful way, more people are going to be impoverished, more people are going to be in situations where they feel more desperate, and the likelihood is that we might see these things a little more often.
You grow up pissed. You grow up mad, you know what I mean? You grow up really not giving a damn about shit. Who's going to replace my years of getting harassed? You know, who's going to bring back our childhoods? Who's going to bring back our communities to a peaceful place where people aren't scared to go outside without having fear of being detained by a police?
It's surprising you shouldn't be. Been going on for thousands of years.
You might get used to it, but it's not going to go away. Until it stops, it's still going to be there. It's always going to be there.